I'm thinking back to when I first signed up to Spotify. It felt like, oh my God, what? I pay, at that time it was a student plan, $6-7 a month, and I can listen to any song I want. I don't need to buy the CD. How good? What a bargain. It feels like Spotify having their cake and eating it too, where it feels like almost, if I'm paying to listen to the music, Spotify should be paying to have the music on the platform, and that's what I'm paying my subscription for. But they're double dipping, getting payment from the artist, getting payment from the subscription.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
All right, I am recording.
Cool. I had something else to say to you. Oh, it was about the tyres. Did you have any further?
I haven't done any investigate. I've got a tab open on my laptop to remind me to investigate further.
Tyrereview.com.
Is it actually a
genuine? It's like a use. It is. It's very it's straight to the point.
.com or .com.au?
.com.au. Sorry.
Thank you.
User generated. So all the reviews are from users.
Yeah, right.
So it's like very authentic. It's not Bridgestone paid us to review their tyre.
I will look into that as well.
The Homebrewed boys will have bloody 8 new tyres between them. These blokes. Well, 9.
Then we'll be flogging them off on Marketplace because we got a good deal on them. I've been tossing with, and this is, I want to know your thoughts on this, Eamon. I've been considering leaving Spotify.
Wow.
Which feels strange to say out loud and probably a weird thing to hear someone say.
It's a massive part of people's lives though, like whoever you stream through. And I feel like I could speak for both of us when I say we don't have a great deal of respect for Spotify as a company. Like in terms of how they treat artists.
Yes.
We do have a lot of respect for they have built a good platform. There's no
and this was one of the reasons why I was thinking about leaving Spotify. And obviously, if you're leaving something, you're going to join somewhere else. I was going to join Apple Music. I got offered I'm on a 3-month free trial with Apple Music at the moment.
Oh, you're already on the trial?
Yeah, I'm on a 3-month free trial.
Wow.
Not really liking the user interface as much at the moment, but still new to me. But the reason I wanted to go to Apple Music potentially was because Spotify, I think it's 0.003 cents per stream. Apple
That's
Music,
bloody good.
Double that effectively per stream that they pay the artists. Obviously, an artist's revenue is still primarily Spotify because there's more people streaming on Spotify, but the pay per stream is a lot less. So I was, tossing up joining Apple Music.
It's curious though, right? Because you think Spotify have so many more active users that they'd be able to, via the amount of revenue they're generating, offer more.
Yep.
But they actually offer half. I mean, Apple's a big company in its own right itself, but you would think that would be something about it. And towards the end of last year, they put up subscriptions to $1. And I did some quick maths at the time. I don't know if we spoke about it on the show.
I don't know. I don't think we did.
Did some quick maths on, I looked up, I can't remember the figures, but the Australian users and then what that equates to every month in terms of extra money in Spotify's coffers. And I was like, well, what are you going to do with that money? Are you going to pay artists more? Because an extra $1 from all of your millions of Australian users adds up quite substantially over a 12-month period.
I saw when they recently, because I think they've gone up twice in like a 12-month period. And in the most recent one, Spotify came out and said something along the lines of, we're going to use it to reinvest in, new technologies.
CEO.
Because they've got the AI Spotify DJ, which is pretty cool. They've also got audiobooks, podcasts, and music all on the one platform. So, and this is one of the reasons which makes it difficult to leave, because all my podcasts are also in Spotify, and I know there's a separate Apple Podcasts app, which I also started using on and off and trialing different things, and I don't mind it in one sense, but there's also things that Spotify does that I just prefer the way that Spotify do it. But also if I'm listening to music and then I listen to a podcast, I can't just jump straight back into the music I was listening to. I need to go to the playlist and hit shuffle again or whatever. So that's the downside of it all being in one app. But audiobooks is also a pretty cool feature. If you're a premium user, you get access, I think 15 hours of free audiobook listening. It's funny, it started off as I'm leaving Spotify and now it's an ad for the company. But these are all the things that go into the decision, right? And one of the reasons why I don't think I will be leaving. And Wrapped as well is a huge thing at the end of the year. Apple, I believe they do monthly as well as at the end of the year. They do a little Wrapped thing as well. But so much of my commuting is listening to podcasts. That is all incorporated in my Wrapped as well as the music.
It's big. It's like, that's what I said at the top of this, and I was dead set that it's a massive part of people's life. Like, if you love music, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably love music.
And podcasts. Hopefully.
And podcasts. Yeah, hopefully as well. If you love music and you love podcasts, whatever, like the app through which you stream it, because no one's, very few people are downloading or whatever anymore, is a massive part of your life, because music's a massive part of your life. So these are significant decisions, as trivial as they might sound, on face value.
And what was ironic about it, in a sense, there's no easy way to just export my Spotify library, which I've been building up for quite a long time. There's no easy way just to get all of that music on Apple Music. I mean, there's third-party apps and websites you can use, but I don't know how comfortable I am giving them all of that data, because I don't know where it goes. And it's ironic that I'm not jumping to Apple for that reason, because so much of what Apple build is to keep you in their ecosystem and to keep you in their walled gardens. And, sure, you might want a new phone, but hey, is it going to talk to your laptop or your watch or your AirPods the same way? No, probably not. So you might as well just get the new iPhone. Like, it's so hard once you're in the Apple ecosystem to escape. Ironically, it's so hard for me to escape the Spotify ecosystem and join Apple.
To get in the Apple, yeah.
Yeah, because Spotify, not that they have a walled garden or anything around it, but it's just so inconvenient to leave.
Yeah. I had wondered that, whether it's easy to transfer music over. But
there's nothing within Spotify that does it.
Okay, there you go. I suppose they're not going to encourage you walking out the door. They're not going to hold the door for you as you walk out there.
No, and what's either good or a curse is joining Apple Music. You can sync your library, so all of your old iTunes purchases show up as well. And it's scrolling through some of my purchases from back in the day, and oh my God, I don't need to be reminded of that. Thank you very much.
Nostalgia. That can be your nostalgia account.
Some's good nostalgia, and some's like, oh my God, that was a phase and stuff. Like, let's just completely forget about all of that. But speaking of Spotify, there's some news that we should talk about, and it's a first of its kind. So they're partnering with Sabrina Carpenter, who's an American artist.
She's a chippy.
She's a what?
She's a chippy.
A chippy.
Yeah, Sabrina. Builds houses.
I'm not understanding that reference.
A carpenter.
Oh, okay. Well, when you said Sabrina, I thought that was the word you were making. No.
Sabrina's a chippy.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm with you. Apologies. Yeah, Sabrina Carpenter. She's partnered with Spotify and EAG. And the idea that they're doing here is they're going to give exclusive ticket access to her Spotify top fans. So speaking of Wrapped, you get, you're in the 1% of all fans of this artist, or, top 5 or 0.1% as, you might have had before. So if you're in the top, I don't know what the percentage is, but just if you're in Sabrina's top fans, you will get exclusive access to her tickets when she tours later this year.
That's very interesting. If Rolling Blackouts Coastal Fever did that for me, I'd have tickets forever.
It's an interesting concept.
It is. I'm trying to immediately react.
Because obviously a lot of the exclusive pre-sale access are, if it's at a stadium, if you're a stadium member, you get early access. Or if you're an arena member, or a member of the venue, you will get early access. If you're, a part of sometimes like Frontier, if you're a member with them, you'll get early access, or Ticketek or whoever it's with, you get early access for being, a member of these certain things. And there's lots of different ways that you can get exclusive early access. And this is just another way that they've opened up, which you'd think would reward fans and, in theory, less spam bots buying all the early tickets and looking to resell them.
Yeah, well, my mind goes a few places. At first, it's like, no, like this, like reward. So if we can make a football reference, like we're not known to do very often.
We never do.
When the Mariners made the grand final at home in a smaller capacity stadium, obviously tickets were going to be a hot property. Mm-hmm. And there was complaints that, greater allocation to members meant that a lot of people who were members were going to miss out because they were going to get snapped up. in the amount of tickets. So members could buy 8 tickets. And people were like, that's too much because the other members who are members won't be able to get tickets. And that's kind of what happened. So they were saying, well, blow-ins kind of, for want of a better term, made their way into the stadium for the big dance when the rusted-ons couldn't even get their own tickets. When you look at something like this, where you're like, okay, that's pretty hard to game. Like that would be her top fans. And then I wonder, though, does it open the door for bot listens to occur?
Well, that would be the only way to game the system, would be to spam repeat songs. But I guess at the end of the day, it's still more streams and it's an extra 0.003 cents to Sabrina Carpenter. So in the end, the artist is still getting a bit of a win.
Yeah. The artist doesn't lose. I'm wondering how the fans land in this, what we think.
Well,
and then also you're pigeonholing that opportunity into Spotify only.
Well, that's the other debate. If you are an Apple Music listener or Pandora or is that it?
Tidal. I don't know if that's still a thing.
Tidal, maybe. But most people are probably in Spotify. But, you know, it does sort of limit it. But I guess in a sense it's limiting, in quotation marks, to the largest streaming service that is available.
It is.
If it was a Tidal or a Pandora or something like that where it feels very exclusive and you are missing most of the people, that's when it might feel a bit different.
The other thing I wonder, I don't know, like we don't know how this lands. Is it cutting out a whole section of the community who might love Sabrina Carpenter or insert whoever artist that they inevitably do more of this for, but can't afford the monthly fee for a Spotify account? But then it's like, well, how are they listening? Like there's all those little things, but I suppose that's the way of the world, isn't it? I mean, and maybe if they can't afford the Spotify, maybe they're not buying tickets. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard.
Is it exclusionary? Is it rewarding those, you know, who have access to a good internet connection and can afford to pay for Spotify every month? Or is it absolutely fine? Because in theory, yes, the best fans should get access to the best tickets. The most dedicated fans should get access to the best tickets because that's their reward for being a dedicated fan. But there's all the other
then how do you decide who is a dedicated fan as well? Like I remember when obviously Taylor Swift tickets were in extremely high demand, I saw people saying, oh, tickets should be allocated based on which era of Taylor Swift you first liked her. So if you only came in her most, because it was the Eras tour was obviously what it was called. So if you only came in towards the last couple of eras, then you're back of the line. But if you've been obsessed with her from her early days, then you should get first dibs on the tickets. I guess this takes a somewhat similar approach by if you're listening to music on Spotify a lot, you're going to get exclusive access.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Or early access.
And this is probably a glimpse into what the future of ticketing looks like in that sense.
Yeah, and how do we feel about that?
I don't know.
How do we feel about streaming services and Spotify in this case being the largest, having that much control over live ticket sales because it's separate to the streaming?
Because it almost feels clunky now, right? When you go, okay, I'm looking to buy tickets to see a band, and then you've got to like find the obscure Ticketek, Ticketmaster, whatever page to go and purchase that ticket. And it feels quite disconnected from the music. Like there's just an avenue for you to purchase tickets. It makes sense that you could get tickets through the place where you listen to the music, because if I want to look up Rolling Blackouts Coast of Fever, then I will usually just go on Spotify and look them up. So if the tickets were there, easy, happy days. I know when shows are coming up too. It all makes sense. But when you give one platform all of that control and power, it's just an extra tentacle for them to wrap around some part of the industry. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's from a consumer point of view, it is. And Spotify have started, well, I say started, it's been there for a little while, but they'll show you gigs and upcoming, artists can put their gigs into, I'm assuming, the back end of their profile or somewhere on Spotify, and it actually shows up. So you can be like, oh, hey, look, Metal Kids are playing in Sydney this weekend. That's cool. And the next step will be to be able to click on that show and be able to buy a ticket from within Spotify, but I don't know if that's how. I think you just get a pre-sale code, and they said here fans can purchase tickets through the venue.
Okay.
Is what they said. So it's not actually purchasing the ticket through Spotify. You just get a code from Spotify to say that you're, a fan, and you get early access. But that wouldn't surprise me if that's sort of the next natural step that Spotify look to take with something like this.
I think it's probably them testing the waters for that. The code makes it a little less appealing because it's like, oh, you're not that special. You just get given a code that everyone else gets given, like you. You're a bit special, but it's not like, oh, you're a top listener. We have one ticket allocated for you if you want it. Do you accept? It's more
but
like,
then who do you go with?
Yeah.
That's the other thing. If it's literally a ticket that you're given, I'm having to count that someone else that I would want to go with is also a top fan.
Yeah.
So I guess, the code is the most easiest way.
Yeah.
But
and then you go and buy 8. But it's interesting. And it does, we're not sold on the ethics of Spotify as a company, obviously. And none of this, we're not really sold on the ethics of any company that's publicly listed. But the more power they can grab over the industry, because we're watching this interesting thing play out, and we've seen it with TikTok too, where there's the traditional, what used to be new media when it comes to music, which is the labels in their current form, digital labels, Universal but digital, at war with TikTok over sampling and copyright. And similarly now we're also seeing a lot of tension between them and Spotify.
TikTok or Universal?
Sorry, TikTok and Universal, but Spotify and the labels as well have also had their issues over enumeration, because the labels effectively represent the interests of artists in terms of they want to get paid more. And similarly with TikTok, the same thing for copyright, although they're in it for reasons that we don't really, and we spoke about this in the past, we don't really respect labels either, because they haven't done a great, well, they have, but they've definitely done some damage and chewed up and spat out a lot of good artists along the way. So we're at this intersection where, is Spotify going to become the label?
That's interesting. They're almost, in a sense, a label themselves. Because when I was thinking about this the other day, about the process of Spotify, how they can charge artists to put music on their platform, charge consumers to listen to that music, and then them pay an absolute pittance to the artist whose music is being listened to, all the while making advertising revenue, making subscription fee revenue. And it just seems like, I'm thinking back to when I first signed up to Spotify, it felt like, oh my God, what? I pay, at that time it was a student plan, $6, $7 a month, and I can listen to any song I want. I don't need to buy the CD. How good? What a bargain. And now it's almost become, Spotify become this absolute conglomerate giant brand where, and sounds like they're going to be gaining a bit more power within the industry as well, but they have so much power now that if an artist doesn't put their music on Spotify and they put it up on SoundCloud, okay, you're going to lose 3/4 of the people who would have actually given you a stream because it's not on Spotify. Same way, if I jump from Spotify to Apple Music, it just feels like then I'm losing out on that Spotify experience by getting the Wrapped and all the other things around it. It feels like Spotify having their cake and eating it too, where it feels like almost, if I'm paying to listen to the music, Spotify should be paying to have the music on the platform, and that's what I'm paying my subscription for. But they're double dipping, getting 100%. Payment from the artist, getting payment from the subscription, getting advertised, everything I mentioned just before. It feels like it's evolved in a way that we've all accepted. But as I look back to my first Spotify experience, it's like, well, hang on, how did we get here so quickly and it felt fine?
Yeah. And you can bet all the artists have Spotify accounts too.
Yeah.
That they're paying for monthly. They're like the water salesman for music. You know what I mean? Like, you need this.
You can sell ice to an Eskimo sort of.
Yeah, you need this. Of course, artists need it because that's how they are listened to, and consumers need it because that's basically become the primary way to listen to music now. And they know that. And that's where it's worrying. But if you look to Australia, we know, looking at, like, for example, our supermarkets, Coles and Woolies, that centralized control doesn't seem to have any negative effects for consumers. Coles and Woolies are completely fine. But you worry that there's this monopoly, duopoly thing that's going to brew, but with global music. And the more that they reach into that, as convenient as these things always seem, and like, yeah, at face value, offering those pre-sale tickets to the top fans makes total sense. But it also represents just another step forward, another chunk out of the industry that's being claimed by one entity, one company, one big multinational with CEO and shareholders can dictate.
I think you can buy merch off Spotify too, from memory.
Oh.
Or at least there's links to merch from the band's website or something.
Yeah.
But there's merch sections, there's gigs. Obviously, they've got the music on there as well. It almost is just becoming a one-stop shop for everything music, which is such a... I'm weighing it up in my head because it's a good thing. From a consumer, if there's just one platform I can go to and get everything I need, good. But when that platform is you're paying increasingly more money for, they're paying poor money to the artist who you're wanting to support. It's hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard to, because you think, well, if it's spread out across everyone and there's more competition and, you know, everyone's a winner in that sense, as opposed to the whole monopoly thing, but also convenience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. Give me convenience or give me death. What's the choice? But it's like the Uber model, right? Where they ran and still they still do. They just get like venture capitalists and rich people to invest in them. They run at incredible losses to keep their prices low until their last competitor finally falls off their perch because they just can't have their prices as low as Uber does. And then when they're the last wolf or the last sheep in the paddock, you know, then they transform into the wolf and up their prices because no one else has another choice.
It's like I've seen videos, funnily enough, on TikTok of, you know, sort of like a little sketch thing. And, you know, say it's you and I, we're both selling oranges at a little stand. You've got a sign in front of your oranges that's saying $3 each. I've got a sign that says $5 each. Then I look at you and go, oh, okay, yours are $3. I'll sell mine for $2 each. Then you look at mine and you go, oh, no, I'm going to beat him $1 each. And that is how consumers win, right? Because we're battling each other to get business. Then in the skit, the person who's selling them for $2 buys all of yours for $1, and now I'm selling mine for $10 each because I've got no competition.
It's a very simple and effective way to explain it. Yeah. Absolutely. And is that what Spotify is doing? Because no one's really made a dent. Apple Music would be their main competitor. Apple, also a very unscrupulous company, may as well be a country. So yeah, like
massive company, but
yeah, two picks.
Feels
Apple
like
and Spotify.
Too late for anyone to be a real threat to Spotify because of all the reasons I laid out at the beginning. It's hard to get your whole library across to a different platform. It's become such a social thing at the end of every year to get your Spotify wrapped and to have your stats and analytics, and it's just a convenient all-in-one app for music, podcast, audiobooks, everything.
The only thing I would wonder, and I don't know if this would apply to streaming, but I mentioned it when we were chatting too. It was when we were speaking to Alex Masso.
Make Music Day.
For Make Music Day. And I mentioned a podcast I've been listening to, and the guy in this podcast speaks about the rot economy. And it's all about how actually a lot of our tech services have deteriorated. And we can say that's true, I think, pretty much objectively for Google, Facebook, like a lot of those apps, definitely. The user experience has gotten worse.
Shocking.
You do not get what you want. Even Google, it's harder to search for what you want now, but it's more profitable for them to just throw more ads in and make the user experience worse because they make more money that way. So the only way I could see anyone ever bouncing out of Spotify is if they go down the rot economy path
and the user experience becomes bad, which at the moment is not.
No.
And I actually said at the start, one of the reasons which kept me on Spotify and not Apple Music was I didn't really like the UI, the user interface on the Apple Music, because I'm used to Spotify. I like the way it works. It's clean. It's simple. I like it. And it's simply what you pick a podcast, you can easily subscribe, you can easily add it to your favorites, you can easily like a song, add it to a playlist. Plus the Discover Weekly stuff is something we haven't touched on with Spotify. The discoverability and the algorithm that Spotify has is also very good, which is also another thing that keeps you there. So in a sense, it's good because I'm saying all these good features are what's keeping me on the platform, as opposed to it's just too hard to leave, which is also a factor, but it's not the main factor.
No.
The main factor is it's got everything sort of within the one app.
We're scared of the beast that's being created. So I don't know. We'll watch and act on this one, I think. But it is interesting to consider. It's always interesting to consider and keep your eyes wide open, even if you're a consumer, because we're all flawed, like, if we were to absolutely follow our ethical standards, we'd be jumping to Apple Music, I suppose. But there's a lot of considerations.
Well, is Apple Music the most ethical platform to jump to?
In terms of how much they pay artists.
Right.
But
okay.
yeah.
With you.
We're all flawed in that sense, but it is interesting to at least walk with your eyes wide open into it. On the note of eyes wide open, the last time we brought you the music news, we were chatting about Sound New South Wales. Not Music New South Wales, Sound New South Wales. The state government body that is tasked with advocating for and creating policy and, driving forward music in the state of New South Wales. We were talking about how it's first of its kind body that exists within government and how that was really cool. Well, slight related update on that. The New South Wales state budget dropped and the state government, to their credit, have actually put in $18.5 million for Sound New South Wales to deliver programs that drive audience and international market development, strengthen the live music industry, and champion New South Wales artists. There's $324 million to Destination New South Wales, which obviously is responsible for a lot of music-related events like Vivid, South by Southwest. $73 million to support grassroots and community arts organisations, and $26.9 million going to the nighttime economy, which is very much music-linked.
It's a lot of money being spent on music in the arts and, the nighttime economy, which is awesome because we've been crying out for this for a long time, and the government promised it when they sort of did their election campaign and when Sound New South Wales were introduced, but to actually see them delivering on the budget is actually a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, so far so good. But this also comes the day we're recording this on the day that Victoria have announced that they're going to implement pill testing. And if we could just knock on the Chris Minns government door, the leading line coming out of Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen was, we need to listen to the evidence. And Chris Minns, if you're listening, maybe you should do the same. That's it's a compliment sandwich. Is that what it is? We're telling you something positive, good stuff about the money for the budget. Now we say negative. You really should be way better on pill testing. And I don't know if there's another positive thing, but anyway, that's an update.
Well, how about it might be a negative sandwich and the bit of positives in the middle of the two bits of negative, because a story which we don't have time to go into too much detail, but there was a report on radio caps, and we've spoken about this a long time. It's about the fair pay for radio play bill. It's incorporated in that, which we spoke about last year. I won't go into too much detail, but the long and the short of it is that the report recommends another review, which is, if you caught last time, a fortnight ago, Music News, where we were talking about the budget, we said, I just hope that when they're doing, because there was a survey and a study that was about, it was the first of its kind. We just said, we hope that they actually use this and implement it and not go, we need to keep doing studies, because we've saw that on pill testing. We've seen that on a number of areas from the government, and this needs another review.
Yeah. If you want to, we did a podcast on this early in the year, maybe late last year. I should have looked this up. If you want a background on what it is, a radio caps, and what they could mean for artists, we're not going to go into detail now, as Cam said, we don't have time. But the federal government, this is the Senate, came back and said, hey, don't pass the bill yet. We need another review.
Which?
So
why?
So there's another review coming. It's not dead in the water. The commercial radio Alliance, whatever they are. I actually have it right in front of me. I should just look at it. The Commercial Radio and Audio CRA. I've been super stoked about it. This is great. I don't buy it. I think it's the same as employers saying it's never a good time for wage rises. But the employer groups never come out and say, we think it's a good time for wage rises. The CRA aren't going to come out and say, hey, we should be paying artists more to play them on the radio. But they're claiming it as a win, but their bill isn't dead. They're just saying we need another review. So we'll keep you updated on that as it develops.
Yeah, that was just funny based on what we spoke about last week.
Exactly. It's a fun little look into how government can be incredibly annoying sometimes to the detriment of good Australian artists. But
good job on the funding.
Yeah, good job on the funding, I guess.
But
okay, actually, before we wrap, are you staying with Spotify?
Yeah, I will. I know when we came in and recorded a podcast last week, I said to you in the car park, I think I might make the switch. And I hadn't really put too much time or consideration into it. And then this past week, I've put a little bit more time into it and a bit more consideration. And I don't think I'll be jumping ship. Like I said, because the user experience is still good.
Yep. Well,
whilst it's good, I will remain.
It's good that you consider that, and you out there listening, consider it as well. You don't have to make a change, but it's always good to think about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think
what you like,
part of
what
my
you don't
problem
like.
Is I always look for like a perfect platform, or I'm looking for a perfect solution.
Oh, it's homebrewed.au.
But Spotify, I have annoyances because if I'm listening to music, I jump away, I come back, I'm like, oh, that's annoying. I'd like to be able to pick up the music where I was. So maybe I'll go to just a music-based platform. And then, because of that, I need to go to a specific podcast platform to listen to that. And I'm like, well, I could still just use Spotify for the music and just a separate podcast platform to do that. But then this podcast platform, I don't like. It's a very small minor thing, but on Spotify, in your feed of your latest episodes, if you have a custom episode thumbnail, it will show that instead of the show thumbnail. And I like that because especially for interview type podcasts, it typically has a photo of the person being interviewed. So even if I don't recognize the name, I might know the face. Apple Podcasts just do the show thumbnail until you click on it, and then it will show the episode thumbnail. But it's just a very small thing. If it was a setting change I could make in Apple Podcasts, maybe I would switch.
No, I have plenty of critiques of Apple Podcasts, but I do use it because I don't like mixing my music and podcasts on Spotify.
Yeah, see,
Apple Podcasts is like the white bread of podcasting. You know what I mean? Like you make a sandwich out of it, and it'll still probably taste good, but you would have other bread if you could. You know what I mean? But
I need a sourdough.
Yeah. I just wish Spotify would just separate the app into two. You know what I mean? Like 2 tabs or something, and one half is for podcasting and the other half is for music, and they don't really get in each other's way.
Yeah, that's what
I don't know why they don't do that.
But I also like how I can, in between podcasts, queue up a new song, or in between songs, queue up a quick podcast or something like. So there are some times where I like them being intermingled. Sometimes I wish they were separated.
Cake, eat it too.
Yeah, but I do this a lot. Like, I just think, like, maybe what I'm doing, there's a better solution for me, even with our podcast. Like, we use Adobe Audition, and Adobe's been in some hot water recently as well.
Have they?
Yeah, for their subscriptions. You sign up for a 12-month subscription, but they hide that if you cancel before that, you have to pay out half of what you still owe. So if you sign up for a 12-month subscription, because that's the monthly fee they give you is cheaper on a 12-month subscription. After a month, let's just say 2 months for the sake of my maths. After 2 months, you say, I want to cancel, you still have to pay 5 months worth of subscription.
Oh, these guys
At which point, most people go, bugger, I might as well keep it. And then you forget about it, it auto renews and the cycle continues.
I hate how it's become a subscription.
I hate subscription based so much. All right, well, we've well and truly waffled for far too long, particularly that end bit, which will probably be most of it cut out. There's a bit of swearing involved too, which is rare for us.
That was, yeah.
We're normally pretty professional. Normally when a mic's in front of me, I don't swear, but that time I did.
It happens. We're getting pretty casual.
See, but just then, professional, it happens, not... The SH happens, even though we can probably say that word and get away with it. But anyway, thank you for letting us talk about Spotify, which we weren't actually planning on talking about Spotify for the whole time, but it just evolved.
It did evolve, and yeah, it was worth discussing. Hopefully it's made you reflect on your own uses and habits and flaws like I have on my own flaws and habits and uses, but it's good to be considering it if nothing else.
And it'll be interesting because I'll probably listen to this on Spotify. I'll be uploading this with Spotify for podcasters. So maybe if you can't listen to this episode, it's because Spotify have seen that we've put them in the title of the podcast, and the AI transcript has said that we're talking smack about them. So they've stopped it from being, how YouTube will suppress videos with stuff. Maybe Spotify are going to suppress this podcast and it won't show up in your feed.
Free Homebrewed. Get the hashtag trending. Come on. We need you. We need you. Free Homebrewed. Please get it trending number 1 on X before the midnight. You'll get a free bird.
It's done.
Simple.
See you next time.
Bye. This episode of Homebrewed was produced by the one and only Cameron Smith, loud, live and local at Sonora Studios in Tuggerah. Big thanks to Jack Negro for having us here. Of course, that is on Darkingjung country. We're paying our respects to the Indigenous community here on the Central Coast. If you want to catch up with anything else we're doing, www.homebrewed.au. Find us there and hear us next time.